So, in case you don't know, there's a new Sonic game releasing very soon, and if you didn't know, here's a life tip. There's always a new Sonic game releasing soon. This time we have Sonic X Shadow Generations, and to celebrate this release, the popular monthly kids manga magazine, Koro Comics, announced it will be releasing a tie-in manga to celebrate it called the Jet Black Hedgehog, Shadow the Hedgehog. Remember that name because I'm not repeating it anytime soon throughout this video. People were honestly quite excited for this manga, and with being released about 2 weeks ago, it was quickly fan translated into English, but it seems that there's some rumors already of this manga's cancellation, and it's not because of a lack of popularity, but rather because of the amount of piracy. Now, I normally don't cover manga news on this channel, but this one is a special case. It is in a weird spot where it covers my love for manga and my love for Sonic the Hedgehog, and it also touches on my interest on Koro Comics, as I think it's one of the most interesting and weirdest manga magazines out there. So I thought I could use this opportunity as a member of both fandoms to bring a new point of view to this entire discussion. So, as someone who's already made an entire video telling people to stop pirating manga, you might expect this video to be just another rant about how pirating manga ruins everything for everyone, but that situation and this one are very different. In that video, I mostly criticize the creation and consuming of leaks, as well as early fan translations of manga that are simul-published officially in English for free or for very cheap. But that is not the situation here. The Shadow manga is only available to read in English through the fan translation. And as I'm going to explain later, I don't think it ever will be available to read outside of those fan translations. So in that case, it's very hard for me to tell you to not consume the pirated version of the manga because, well, that's what I did. But let's actually rewind a bit. Is it even true that Piracy is killing the Shadow the Hedgehog manga? Is the manga getting cancelled, and if so, is it because of piracy? Well, probably not. The truth was that there was actually a lot of screenshots published online prior to the manga being released, and eventually the entire first chapter translated into English. And that was enough, at least for Koro Comics, to release a statement on the matter, and one that feels a bit threatening when it comes to the future of the manga. To quote a translation of it, if copyright infringement continues, it will be impossible for the manga creators to produce new works. To protect the manga, we kindly ask you not to post images without the copyright's holder's permission. This definitely feels like they're telling you to stop, otherwise they'll cancel the manga, but it feels as threatening as when my dad would tell me to do my homework or you cancel the internet subscription. He never did. Koro also said this at the very start. Since the start of the serialization, we have received an overwhelming response, and we hope you continue to enjoy this work in the future. Which tells me that they don't really plan on canceling this manga regardless of piracy, because it's probably still giving them a lot of money. Now, I'm not saying to go around and post screenshots of this manga everywhere, because there will be no repercussions. Rather, I'm just saying that they didn't actually say the manga was being cancelled, at least so far. Now, for the hardest part of this video, to defend the company. The main reason why I wanted to make this video was to talk about the main argument among the community, which is, well, why didn't they release this in English? As well as the bit of a lesser argument of Koro should have seen this coming. But actually, let's briefly talk about another argument, which is that if the manga isn't available outside of Japan, then us reading fan translations isn't actually hurting the manga sales, which is something that I actually agree with, but we need to understand that Koro Comics didn't release the statement just because of people reading the English translations. One of the biggest problems of the manga industry in Japan right now is leaks. People intercepting these magazines and publishing spoilers and screenshots and even full chapters before the manga is even available to buy in Japan. And it is important to note just how seriously Japan and the companies involved are treating this, because there's been people arrested and put into jail over things like this. It mainly affects big titles like One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, Blue Lock, so it's unlikely Koro Comics, a manga magazine that mostly focus on manga for kids ages 7 to 10 or so, to really have faced up till now. but their parent company, Shogakukan, is probably very aware of its effects. And say that the leaks don't hurt the Japanese audience is wrong, and one of the main reasons why, despite not being against fantranslations, I'm very much against the leak culture. Because more often than not, the leakers are posting spoilers online before the Japanese readers, the main audience, is even able to get the manga on their hands, and that can definitely hurt the sales. Now, I don't know how much this affects the main target demographic of CoroCoro Comics, because one, I don't know how many kids are actually looking for leaks online, and two, CoroCoro sells more issues based on the trinkets and posters and stickers that they sell, rather than the manga that they actually publish in the magazine, at least as far as I'm aware. I definitely don't think this is like something that is big enough to warrant just considering canceling the manga altogether, but I can see it being at least justifiably thing to worry about. So with that in mind, why haven't they just simul-published it in English? Look, the manga industry and its availability in the West has improved dramatically over the past like 10 to 15 years, but it is still not perfect. So while Shonen Jump, the biggest, most popular, best-selling manga magazine in the entire world, has somehow managed to build an altissimo publishing system after literally decades of making their name recognizable worldwide, everyone else is still playing catch-up. And truth is, it's something that is not really viable for a lot of manga magazines, CoroCoro being one of them. And that's not even talking about the fact that Shonen Jump still faces piracy very, very heavily. While CoroCoro Comics releasing an app where they just simulpub their entire roster of manga in English would be really, really cool for me and a couple of other hardcore manga fans, it will still be a very dumb financial decision because most people, as we will be discussing, just don't care. They wouldn't care for most of their content. So let's just focus on simul-publish specifically the Shadow the Hedgehog manga. Most simulpubs happen in dedicated apps of their parent companies. So, you know, Shonen Jump publishes most of their stuff either on Viz Shonen Jump or on Manga Plus, which is the app made by Shueisha, which is the parent company of Shonen Jump. There's the Manga Up app, which belongs to Square Enix, which curiously enough has a bunch of manga magazines. There's something like the K-Manga, which belongs to Kodansha. So, CoroCoro Comics belongs to Shogakukan, which is the same company that publishes Shonen Sunday and Big Comic. And the English rights for most of their stuff belongs to Viz, since Viz was first built up by Shueisha and Shogakukan to work together to release manga in English. It's the OG manga publisher, and as such it has tremendous power. Viz is currently the main bet to release a simulpub official translation of the Shadow manga, and I really doubt they do that on the Jump app because that's by Shueisha, but they do have another app which publishes their Shogakukan stuff, which is the Viz app. So if they could put the Shadow the Hedgehog manga on the app, why haven't they? Well, that brings us to the second argument, they should have expected and prepared for this. I think that now, with the information that there is definitely interest, I think they should definitely think about the option of picking up the simulpub. There's probably some licensing stuff to discuss with Sega. I mean, since as far as I'm aware, there's not a single one of their Nintendo manga on the app. That might be something to do with digital versus printing rights, but the idea that they should have made this manga available right from the get-go because Sonic and Shadow are popular here and obviously there would be an audience it's wrong. I think it stems from people thinking that the Shadow the Hedgehog manga is like this unique thing happening right now, but it's not. CoroCoro Comics have been publishing Sonic manga since before I was born, since 1992. Amy Rose first started in a CoroCoro Comics manga before appearing in Sonic CD. That's how long these things are happening. And sure, 1992 and 2024 are very different times, especially when it comes to the information that reaches us from Japan. But there's been comics, like there's been manga, the Sonic manga released constantly since then, both in CoroCoro Comics and out of it. Like CoroCoro had the tie-in for Sonic and Mario at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, and then Genki Nintendo DS had manga for Sonic Unleashed, Black Knight, Chronicles, Colors, and even Generations. The world of Sonic manga is vast, and the only one that was officially translated into English was this digital manga called Sonic Comic that was released for the 25th anniversary of the franchise, and that was released on the Sonic Channel, which is a website that, as far as I'm aware, is fully owned by Sega. And even then, that took 2 years to be fully translated into English. But even ignoring Sonic for a little bit, remember when I mentioned that there's Korokoro Nintendo manga? Yeah, there's tons. There's Pokemon and Mario and Kirby and Animal Crossing, and that's not even talking about other manga adaptations for other stuff like, I don't know, Fortnite, Mongus, Poppy Playtime, Shrek, Yokai Watch, Crash Bandicoot. Viz has published some of their stuff and especially found some popularity with the Pokemon manga, but even stuff like the Kirby and the Animal Crossing manga, they aren't really that popular. They're just like fun curiosity thing for some fans of the series to buy. But we have to understand that Viz wasn't still publishing the magazine chapters of these series. It's been publishing the volumes. And if you're new to manga and you don't know the difference between magazines and volumes, essentially the Shadow the Hedgehog is being released in this thing, the Korokoro Manga Magazine, which is released monthly, and every month a new chapter of Shadow the Hedgehog will be released. But after it gets enough chapters to release a volume, which normally takes for a monthly magazine like about 5-6 months, then it's released as a volume, which is the compilation of all, the chapters. And it's this thing that Viz normally translates, and it's this thing that more likely than not we could potentially expect. But we have to understand that like the Shadow the Hedgehog, like the volume in Japanese, is probably only released like deep into 2025, and for Viz to then grab that and localize it, translate it, and have the rights with Sega and Korokoro and everything, we're looking at like a release of mid to like late 2025 in the best case scenario. And at that point we need to ask ourselves, like, is it even worth it to publish a tiny manga for a game that by the point that we can buy the volume, it's already been past its peak of relevance because it's been overshadowed, no pun intended, by other Sonic games that probably have been or are going to be released very, very soon? I think it's feasible. I mean, this is Shadow the Hedgehog manga, then they could promote it as such, as a manga about the popular character and not necessarily manga about the game. And I think that's probably what they do with Kirby and Animal Crossing, because those are, franchises that have solid core audiences that can buy this at any time, and those series are tied to the franchise and not necessarily like a specific game. We know that there's an audience for the manga, and there's probably going to be still an audience for the manga a year from now. The Sonic fanbase is big and it is passionate, but even then, will there be enough of an audience to justify it? I don't know, and Viz needs to know to take that risk. Despite almost exclusively publishing manga adaptations of big IPs, a lot of them popular or even originated outside of Japan, Korokoro comics and kids manga magazines in general have remained pretty obscure in the West, often because these manga don't really have that much quality to them. They often use immature, childish humor to capture the attention of kids. They don't really follow or have plots. They disregard canon events and characters' personalities to essentially be a barrage of jokes that use imagery and characters that those children may recognize from somewhere else. I find this entire subculture of manga very interesting, but I am in the minority, and I've always been in the minority. So when something like this happens, where people find a kid's manga that they enjoy and actually becomes somewhat popular and gets translations that I can read, and it brings people that may not actually be manga fans into my world, I love it. It makes me really, really happy. I'm not against translating and reading this manga. I'm in favor, actually. But I think at least the leaks need to stop. Like, I think Korokoro has some reason to be wary, at least of that part of piracy, at the very minimum. And we should try to not consume it. But all in all, my point is just that it's not that easy. And it should be. But it's not. I hope Korokoro Comics can use this to maybe have a bit more translation stuff officially And I hope that Sonic fans use this manga as a way to kickstart their journey into this wonderful medium that is manga. And if you are one of those fans, you might be interested in the video that's going to pop up on your left, where I go through some Sonic manga with a friend of mine and Sonic YouTuber, Mumsy. And if you watched till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.